stream of consciousness to love. And I've got to tell you, this time it's all about the process of reincarnation. Athar has made it plain in the heavenly realms that he wants to return. He needs to return. So he's being taken to all the different levels to aid in his evolvement, to enable him to return to the earthly realm. My understanding, my deep feeling is that spirit connection is with us 24/7. It is there whenever we need. It's the listening that's sometimes truncated with, the mind gets a bit monkeyish and wants to do things and control things. But to trust the divine and to know that they're there, to be able to ask questions and trust implicitly.
Hello and welcome back. Once again, I'm Stan, and another fascinating conversation. And many of us have spoken about the possibility of there being life after death, and some of us have experienced the precipice of the other side. Some of us have detailed those who have crossed over and come back. And it's very hard to quantify and describe this other realm that we seem to travel to on our various journeys through many lifetimes, ultimately. So this is going to be a great conversation. So tonight I'm talking to Stephen Chong, and he is the author of The Afterlife, A Journey To, which is a fascinating book. And I want to kind of get to know what the story is about and what inspired you, Stephen. So thank you, Stephen, for being here today. It's going to be an amazing conversation.
Stan, thank you for having me across a great amount of ditch between you and I.
I'm literally on the other side of the planet right now.
Yes.
So my understanding of your story, ultimately you're chronicling the journeys of those who have crossed over. I believe Aethar is the person who kind of acts as your eyes on the other side to detail this. So this is fascinating because it's almost like there's times that I've been to other countries where you have a tour guide kind of introducing you to this other culture. So in a way, it seems like Aethar is like a good educator and a good journeyman just to send you on that way. So before I get into the big conversation, really, so my audience most likely don't know who you are just yet. In your best words, tell us a bit about yourself, Stephen, what interests you, what excites you, and what drew you to the paranormal?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. Let me give you a bit of backstory here, Stan. I was a late bloomer from authorship is concerned. I didn't start writing until I was 50, and now we're almost 20 years later than that. And about 5 years ago, I'd retired. I was done. Writing books is like having children. They're beautiful, but they're hard work. So I'd retired. But as you do when you're in your 60s, you still think yourself bulletproof. And one particular day and we live in rainforest here. We're very remote and no near neighbours and the like. And I was up cleaning out the gutters, as you do when you've got grey on your roof and you're old. And the ladder slipped and fell, and I went through all the plate glass windows you see kind of behind me, and I fell about 15 feet and fractured my neck. All is well. Here we stand, and I'm in good shape. In the recovery, Stan, what happened, and there was the months that I'm good for nothing. I'm on a couch, and my wife is my servant feeding me. But I had this, it was like a hamster wheel going on in my head, had the title of this book, The Afterlife, A Journey To, blah, 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 blah. I was like Peter denying the Christ. I said, because I knew what it was. It was the universe trying to tell me something. It was knocking on my door. And I said, no, leave me alone. Go away. I'm done. I'm retired. But, eventually I said, okay, you, the universe, you want me to write this thing. Okay, I'm in. I will. And I had the title in my head, but I said, what do I know? I know nothing, apart from what one has read. But as soon as I sat in front of the PC, it was like tuning in. I heard the music. I saw the colours. It was so vivid. And it was like just being there. And 3 weeks it took me to download this story. And Athar, the main character, he took me on this journey through the heavenly realms. He showed me all the wonders that are there. And that's 3 weeks it took to download this book. And I've got to tell you, it has made such a profound difference to the way I live and interact with the world and the people you love, your spouse, your children, your kin, whatever. It diametrically transformed my perspective of the world. It's been, from that point of view, just the greatest of gifts to know what happens on the other side, consequential of what we have done in our lifetime has been so profound, my friend.
Well, it's incredible. I mean, for one, I'm glad you're still with us. You're okay physically now.
So am I.
Ultimately, an accident triggered this connection to something greater, which kind of like asked you, almost demanded of you, really, that you start telling this story, which I find is fascinating. So, were you a spiritual person before this, or were you interested in the paranormal side of life before this accident?
Paranormal, no, Stan, but spiritual, yes. I always had that connection, if you will. I was blessed. I chose very well when I come down to earth, because I chose a mother who was beyond the beautiful. She was an angel. It was, because we lost her a couple of years ago, which we can talk about in reference. So there was a pathway leading to this door that was opened by the fall. But the interesting thing is, and my understanding is let's call them NDEs, or spiritually transformative experiences, whatever we want to call them, what they do in offering is to redirect, to say, Stephen, you've been on a pathway. You can stay retired if you want to, dear Stephen. It's okay. We still love you. However, there's a door that's going to open for you if you choose.
Okay.
I did obviously choose that. And the other thing which I know to be important about that is that experience gifts us with, let's call them superpowers, abilities, skills that you didn't realize that you had before. So, I mean, like I say, I fall off a ladder. I choose with a great deal of trust to write this book, and that then the superpower, if you will, comes along and says, here's the ability, here's the skill, here's the guidance, here's the love that directs you. Let's go forward. And that's what happened. A beautiful thing.
Yeah, I mean, what better result from an accident is to kind of wake up with a better perception of reality. I can almost feel it from here, because even just talking to you before this recording, I can tell from here, you're just a bundle of positive energy. I mean, hopefully if I live long enough to kind of get to your age anyway, and hopefully I'll be as positive as you are after having lived a life as, the world at the moment is quite a tumultuous place, really. There's a lot of negativity going around, and I think we do need more people like yourself in the world, really kind of spreading a bit of love, really. So I think maybe that's part of your mission as well, connecting with Aethar. I know he kind of is Aethar a he? Does it really matter so much?
It's a he, yeah. Yes.
Is a he, yeah.
Yes.
So be the way Aethar kind of teaches you that, but also I think the higher vibrations seem to bleed out onto you as well, because as you know, I had a near-death experience, and I came back with a different kind of cognition and the abilities to feel and see certain things as well. And it's taken me a whole lifetime to begin to understand what on earth that is. And my journey was quite scary, quite frankly. I didn't have as positive journey, but it's interesting that happened to you later in life. And for you, it seems to be more of a positive thing, rather, because I think that you've reached a certain point of cognition now where you already understand life. You've lived many years in this body. I think you're ready for that next level, that upgrade. I'm kind of curious to see what Aethar's mission is. Is there part of Aethar's mission that you think actually this really inspires me?
Yes, it's an interesting question. Let me give you the perfect example of the application of the understandings, the knowledge. And you're right that now I just turned 69 years old, and once that sees your endpoint a bit more relative than of 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So Godspeed to you younger fellows that have the abilities and skills to direct us forward. But let me give you the perfect example. Around 3 years ago, I lost my beautiful mother, and she was 84 or 5. And ever since I was a wee lad, ever since I could remember, I said to myself, Mum, when you go, I'm not staying. I want to go where you go, because she was such a beautiful being. An avatar, an angel in many respects. So I'm not hanging around here in this place. And, when she passed, one feels grief for her loss. I can't go up and say, hey, Mum, what's for dinner anymore? But I know exactly where she's gone, and she is more present now than she ever was before. The connection, that bridge of love, to know that she is there on call, if you will, that there's no separation, for me, makes her more powerful, more present than she ever was. So there's no, that, as I say, that love is a bridge between the kin. So, and one can call upon that love whenever trouble strikes, or you need answers, or whatever it might be. That alone, in the writing and the experience of writing this book, is worth the price of admission. Yes, grief for loss of presence, but to know where she's gone, she's in the heavenly realms upon which she's entered, I can see vividly. And that bond of love, that connection is there. It's so vivid. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that is wonderful. Been many times in my life, I'm not unique. It's happened to many of us out there where you lose somebody that you love, and obviously that hurts. We have funerals for them, but funerals seem to be more for the living rather than the dead that are passed on.
Correct.
I know, grief is the price we pay for, the gift of love, and I get that. But grief also seems to come from our lack of understanding of where we come from and where we go to as well. So I used to kind of handle people passing away quite terribly when I was younger, but now I've had the experience that I've had, and I've come to understand what I've seen in my adventures in the other side. And I understand that, the veil between is just a veil ultimately, we're passing from one room to a next. And that's what it seems to be. And, yes, it is harder for us to communicate with them at their vibration because we're in this realm and this vibration.
Correct.
But it doesn't necessarily mean they're gone, because, even just basic scientific fact that energy can't be destroyed, it is only transferred.
Correct.
And that's just the basis of all spirit and energy, where it passes to. So, kind of fascinated to kind of learn more about kind of what Aethar's kind of taught you so far. So ultimately, I feel like this is a dummy kind of a newbie question, really, though. But what ultimately is the afterlife to you, and what purpose does it have? I suppose, what does it serve?
Oh, again, that's an interesting question. To me, it's an evolving state of awareness. It's a connection to, a remembering of our oneness with spirit, where there is no separation between us and spirit. My understanding, my deep feeling is that spirit connection is with us 24/7. It is there whenever we need. It's the listening that's sometimes truncated with, the mind gets a bit monkeyish and wants to do things and control things. But to trust the divine and to know that they're there, to be able to ask questions and trust implicitly. Now I live my life trusting implicitly that whatever is going on, I connect with that spirit and say, what do I do? How do I do? Where do I go? How do I fix? And I know there will be an answer. That intuition that comes, that inspiration that says, got it. Okay. And then, of course, it takes courage to go and do these things. But to know that connection is there for us when we open up, it's like, I think the Indians call it the native Indians call it the hollow bone. That's the channel through which the connection is made. My friend, I've got to tell you, and I've come to this rather lately, unfortunately. However, there are two portals where this veil, where the connection is more open than not. And they are at the time just as we go to sleep and just upon awakening. So the veil is very thin. Those two times are when we can really say, okay, God, guide me. What do I do? Where do I go? And that conduit is really open, because it's when the busy mind is not active, is when that conduit is open at those particular times.
Yeah, that's fascinating, because there are times which as a term people use nowadays called flow states, where if you're working, it could be like an artist, you could be mechanic, whichever your field is, basically. But once you get to a certain level of concentration, you're able to work in a more efficient way. You're able to know exactly what to do next. You're in that flow. When you're in that flow
Correct.
state, you're able to take a step away from the forefront of your conscious mind to allow that free state to move. And in a way, I kind of sort of relate that to sleeping, because I know sleeping, like the brain kind of runs through the data that you've received all throughout that day, the memories. But I think we do get to a certain point where we're able to take a step back and access the greater, like the library of information available to us. There's times in which in my life where I've actually gone to sleep with the problem that I can't seem to figure out. I've got no way of knowing what to do next and everything. And I've just gone to sleep, fed up and exhausted. And that's where I feel like as I'm sleeping, I'm conversing with somebody somewhere. And I'm not exactly sure kind of where, what, and how, but I felt like I spent an entire night just talking to somebody or something, and then wake up with an answer in my head straight away, refreshed. And there's so many times in my life that's happened. I mean, there's even times where I've actually woken up laughing as well. It sounds completely mad. I've actually woken up laughing as if someone has just told me something as I've woken up, and I've forgotten what they said as I come to the forefront of my mind again. So it's just... It's so bizarre. It's so bizarre, but that's the beauty of it. So I do believe there is something we do connect to, 100%.
And what you talk about to me is so real. It is very real. Let me give you an example of that. I was shown, again, written in the book, it was called The Abode of Reunion. Let me give you a descriptor. Again, through Athar's eyes, this is what I'm seeing. So we're standing with a guide. I was always with a guide, and standing on this hilltop, looking down upon this dale, and there's like masses of souls there in communication. And to the side were these mists, these grey mists, and these mists in the book were described as that when we pass over, when we die to the world, we go through these mists, and I call them the mists of judgment, for want of a better term. However, on this dale were all these, some souls in beautiful robes, which we can talk about later, and others that were connected by a silver cord. And they were like in communication. And standing with this guide, I said, like, what is this place? And what was described to me very vividly was that when we sleep, the soul, and remember, yes, the body has to rest, but the soul also has to rest. Remember, the soul is beautiful and perfect, and it's housed in this rather, not base vibration, but you know what I mean. It's a lower vibration, so it needs to rest. So, and what happens is it goes, when we go to sleep with a problem, the soul transits across to this abode of reunion and meets up with loving kin, a guardian angel, a soul that is able to give us answers. Love is generally the bridge to this. So you meet up and you have a conversation, discussion, and then, of course, the soul, when we wake up, comes back into body. And that's when we wake up and we go, I've got it. I hear it. I've got the answer. The key one is to trust that happens, to know that it happens. And a good exercise, Stan, is to, just as we go to sleep, to connect in love with, it might be a parent or a kin or your guardian angel, whoever, but feel love within your heart and go, what do I do about this? How do I fix? Where do I go? So you ask a constructive question that enables the soul to say, okay, goes over, receives the answer, and then when we wake up, with our notepad by the bed or our phone or whatever it might be, we get that. And as you rightly described, you get the answer and you go, oh man, that's it. I've got the answer. Away go. But to know that where you've been, that's what's happened. And to trust that will happen when you ask the right questions and feel the love in your heart, because that love is the key to that bridge. It's a very real thing for me, what you describe.
Yeah. I've heard that so many times, actually. I've spoken to different mediums and spiritual people and people of all different walks of life who've connected with something. They always come back to that love, the love vibration. Mm-hmm. To me, love for me, many times through my life is just a word that you use to describe something that you like, and it's never really held much precedence to me. And the older I've grown, the more I've appreciated that. It's one of the most pure feelings you can have, in a world full of hate and anger and all this negativity, that it's this beautiful thing that love overrides everything ultimately. And the more I've delved into this whole spiritual world, it seems to be like love is a form of connection. It's almost the thread
Correct.
that binds us and connects us to something that's greater as well. So yeah, like
that's
the
right.
more spiritual I've become over the years, like I'm not the most mega spiritual person ever though, but I'm kind of leaning more into that and trusting that more now. I've become a far more compassionate person, because back in my younger days, I was a far more judgmental person for other people's experiences in comparison to what I saw. And I had like a near-death experience that I just ignored for many years. I just denied it ever happened. And eventually I had to kind of admit, okay, well, I've seen things that are impossible. But the more I've let into that, the more of a compassionate person I've been, and the more I've seen people for just being the beings that they are, rather than looking at the vessel that they're sat in, whatever skin color that they have, or background they come from in this life, whatever clothes they're wearing, or whatever tribe they associate with. Ultimately, I just see people as people now. And if I was talking to animals, for example, no shame, I do speak to my cats. I certainly do that. But I just see things as energies, as beings, and I think the day that I began to do that, I felt like a weight was lifted off me, because I felt like I had to keep putting on a mask to continue this play with other people as they wore their masks, to try and be something that they thought that they should be presenting to the world. And therefore, obviously, with that, my mask came off. I felt freer. And then, that whole love connection made sense.
Isn't that interesting?
And I just thought, actually, this feels like I'm truly alive now. And but I suppose I've got a question I've got to ask you as well, though. Like, my guide's kind of asking me to say this. We have the word afterlife. So afterlife to me is like the definition based upon the idea that we have this one life. What happens after this life? And it seems to me like the afterlife is like the end of life, because we talk about death and the crossing of that. If we talk in the spiritual sense that we are essentially in one realm and another realm and so on, there is no death ultimately. And this whole concept of afterlife is no longer valid. It's just the next step. It's the next journey. So is the word afterlife even valid anymore at this point?
It's a very good question. To me, it's not that death is not an ending. It's a total beginning. Let me put it to you this way. When we pass over, we don't go where we're told. We go where we fit in. What you rightly mentioned before, that it's a vibrational frequency. What I was shown through the writing of this tome was different levels, but they were not geographical levels; they were frequency levels. So if we pass over with residues of hate and anger and malice to others, that's where we fit in. When we live our life in that cocoon, if you will, for want of a better word, love, that's where we resonate to. And Stan, I've got to tell you what's really interesting. Again, this journey is very much the beginning. My accident happened about 5 years ago, and then some, and the book was written just after that. But the period subsequent, I've tried to write in the voice of Athar. I've written short stories. That's what I do. But I could not replicate the voice. I tried, for want of trying, and I'm using my mind to replicate this soul's voice. I couldn't do it. But on the 24th of December last year, I woke up this particular morning and I had it. It was just, he was back again. He was there. And he gave me the title of this next book I'm in progress of writing. And it was just the same thing, the stream of consciousness to love. And I've got to tell you, this time it's all about the process of reincarnation. Athar has made it plain in the heavenly realms. He wants to return. He needs to return. So he's being taken to all the different levels to aid in his evolvement, to enable him to return to the earthly realm. That's another story.
Okay.
But the interesting thing is that the voice is so clear, the music and the colours are so clear, and it's just a beautiful thing to write. But the application of the knowledge, the understanding, for me, is also very important, to live what you know. to talk to lovely people on podcasts, to do whatever you need to do, write your books or whatever, to not just to keep the information or the knowledge in your pocket. This is given in service so that we can be of service to others.
I get that. So it kind of seems like a collaborative kind of unity, really, in terms of like, passing on a message and educating others. So I'd like to ask you, like, ultimately, like, who is Aethar exactly, and where does Aethar come from? And could you tell us a bit more about Aethar's kind of personality? Like, do they have does this person have favorite? Does it have like hobbies or anything? I don't know. Like, or is it is it too high of a vibration to do these kind of things?
No. Very interesting. The people have asked me, whether I was channeling or not, and look, honestly, I don't know, and I don't know that it matters. But to me, it was like the description for me is like tuning a radio dial. You just tune into the frequency, and then you hear and you listen. Mind you, I had to create a cone of silence around me with no interruptions and the like. Athar, his background that I was given, in his life as a young man, he was abused under the auspices of the clergy. And later on his life, he took his own life. So he committed suicide and was stuck in this, I can remember it vividly, he was stuck in this purgatorial state by virtue of the anger and the malice he felt and the shame of his experience. He was stuck in this state, and he couldn't see the light that was there, because the light is always there.
Yeah.
He couldn't see it. It took the forgiveness of others, the person that enabled these heinous things in his life to occur. He forgave them. And that forgiveness was his key to release him into the light. And that's where really our journey began, and he showed me all of these things. Stan, the other interesting thing, and people have asked me, like, was it a real character? And honestly, I don't know. But the words, the language that came through, as you probably read, it's Old English. It's Elizabethan language. I don't think like that. I don't write like that. As you can tell from accent, God forbid. And I can't even come close to speaking like that. But that's how it comes through. So I know, he lived. He was an earthly being. What age? Perhaps it was centuries ago. I can only speculate by virtue of the type of writing that came through. And as I say, that in this recent book, the current writings, the language is the same. It's the same Elizabethan Old English type language. So it's the same character. It's a confirmation for me.
So when people pass over, so that they retain their earthly linguistics, I suppose, like way of speaking, which I find really interesting. And the fact that this person retained their story as well, so they're able to share that with you about how they came to be where they are. And it's interesting though, do you think that when people pass over, are they given roles? So it seems to be, for example, Aethar, when he did what he did to cause them to cross over, that they were given an opportunity to educate others or perform the certain role. So do you think others that pass over are also given opportunities or just roles to play?
Yes, that is very apparent both in the writing of the Afterlife and this current one. That same theme comes through, and it's always point of choice. One can continue to evolve in the heavenly realms, but it's a point of choice. I mean, what I've been shown is that you can kind of stay where you are and be happy, or at whatever level one remains. But the real key is that continual evolvement of spirit, to remember who you really are, to connect with the divine beings that we are, both in heaven and in life. That, to me, there's no separation there. That evolvement continues to occur in the heavenly realms, but here, as in flesh as we are, it's the same thing. We're here for a purpose. We have a divine purpose to fulfill. We are gifted with skills and abilities to be able to realize that and remember who we are. That's what the trials and challenges are there for, to help us remember.
Yes.
So I've heard we embrace that and go forward.
Yeah, so that's been a commonality in recent interviews I've done as well. So it's interesting you're saying all these things because it's aligning perfectly, because it seems to be like, my understanding so far is like we start this life back to zero again. So we have no memories of what we did before. It seems to be like this life is more of a school, really, like a sandbox, essentially, to find your way back to knowing what you previously had known. And through that, be given numerous experiences that challenge your character. It could be that the last life you lived with riches, and this life you start with poorer than poor.
Correct.
And you find your way back to appreciating and knowing those journeys. I mean, like my early years, I'm talking about from when I was a kid until teenage years, until when I was an early man, essentially. Like, I've had as many situations in my life that were just ridiculous, like beyond measure. You think, why on earth would life present you to that? Believe it or not, I'm a very, very polite, kind kid. I was always very good back in the day, and I always question, like, why on earth did that happen? Because I've done nothing to anybody. I didn't bully anybody at school. I went and my lessons were really well. Basically, like, I did my homework. I was great outside of school. I used to go to church back in the day. Yet these ridiculous things would happen in my life because I had a terribly violent stepfather. Unfortunately, I was severely bullied for years. There's like abuse that had happened over the years, like tragedies that would happen in my family, all sorts. And again, back then I was thinking, what did I do to deserve that? As time's gone by and I've had time to step away from those situations and reflect upon my experience, it's almost like when I look back at my life, it was almost like a hologram in a way. Like, I knew those things did literally happen in this life, but I see them as a very different being now. That when I look back upon those experiences, I saw opportunities where I massively progressed in my understanding of self and the world. And I've become a far kinder person now today because of those things. And through this, I'm educating others about different ways to see things. For example, like through this podcast, I'm showing others that you can talk about the paranormal in a place that's completely safe. But at the same time, I've been sharing my learnings too. So yeah, it seems to be like we're all in this school, learning and evolving. When we get to the afterlife, it's almost like everything's taken back again, and you remember, that's who I am. But I'm beginning to get little tidbits over time where I'm beginning to remember, okay, that's who I was, who I've always been. I'm a much stronger person now. I'm far more confident. The way in which I communicate now is vastly different compared to, say, 10 years ago when I didn't know who I was. I didn't have the confidence to do that. So yeah, I do believe we begin to regain those abilities again. So I mentioned it on the radio the other day, actually. There's a quote by Socrates, and it's, all learning is a form of remembering. It's rediscovery.
That's exactly it.
I may be misquoting that slightly anyway, though, but yeah, it's around that anyway. But either way, like Socrates, I do believe was onto something. And he's one of the great philosophers of the day. But I do believe he had a connection back then from his writings. Hence why he was treated as a heretic back in the day, because he was saying some things that were really questioning the authority of the time. He's in like almost like the thought of authority. They decided how you would think and how you would perceive the world, you see. So yeah, so I think he may have been one of us maybe a long time ago.
That's interesting because Edgar Casey said in his readings, as I read a couple of days ago, that exactly the same thing. I paraphrase a bit, but if we were given the knowledge of our purpose if we remembered when we were born what we were here for, we would not learn anything. It's like going to school and being told the answers, and so you can fill out the exam forms.
Yeah, great analogy.
So this troubles and strife at the various levels build the spiritual muscle, don't they? It guides us to remember who we are. And my friend, I've got to tell you the great thing about what you mentioned is that, so you're a young man now, and you've got this whole
I'm getting
bloom
old.
to, aren't we all?
Yeah.
The only regret I hold to is that I didn't come to some of these revelations 20 or 30 years ago. However, that's the way it goes. So you have a great unfolding in front of you. Bless you for that. But yes, the connection to one's life purpose, I think, is critical. And those two times I mentioned, the mornings and just before we go to sleep, we can ask that question. That's when we say, well, I am becoming, you lie on your bed and go, I am becoming more spiritually enlightened. Help me unfold my life purpose. That's when we can ask those questions, and that portal opens up to say, oh, God, thank God he's asked that question. Here's the answer. So those times can be used. Mind you, during the course of a day, I was talking about this with two colleagues just yesterday. The important thing is, and these are great businessmen, and lovely fellows, and they were describing to me their goals and what they want to achieve in business. And I thought, oh, that's really cool. I said, well, that's what you want to do, but how are you going to do it? What? I said, be calm, be centered. When you do things, be there. Your head's not 3 steps in front of you. Be in that moment, connect in with that divine spirit, that intuition that is there. It's not just in sleep, not just in when we wake up. It is there present for us all the time. So when we do things, we be connected to that spirit, that intuition, which is not separate from us. And I think that my two colleagues got that. So the knowledge that intuitive force, let's call it the muse, for want of a better term, is there for us all the time. No separation. And we can call on it whenever we need, with the knowledge and trust that the answer will come.
I found myself over the last few years trying so hard to try and connect with something higher to find the truth. And I find it's almost like the harder you try, the less you get. And it's like the moment you let go and almost allow it to come to you when it's ready, basically, it's when it finally clicks, really. Because
that's it.
So remember, actually, if I could present something to you, I'm kind of curious to see what you think, actually, because I believe it has something to do with a certain deity, and I'm kind of curious to see if you guess what it might be. Anyway, again, like no judgment here. Anyway, just kind of curious to see. Basically, a few years ago, I was having some trouble with a company I was working for, where I was being severely mistreated, and it was during the pandemic as well. So everything was shut down. I had 2 young kids, so I was like working all day long to keep them happy, keep my job happy, and I was just exhausted to the point of like giving up entirely. And it's like one night I think I went to sleep where I just like I had no energy left. I was like, I have no idea how to see a positive in any of this. And that was after as well, because I actually collapsed in the garden. Actually, I was so exhausted, I actually like was unconscious for a couple of minutes in the garden. Like that's how hard I was working to keep us all afloat during the pandemic. So yeah, so you can imagine I was in like, just exhaustion state really. I didn't know how to see a way forward. And that was also the challenge that was being presented to me by the company I was working for, because they were doing something then that was not good. And without going into detail there, but I went to bed that night and I had the most profound dream. And unlike any dream that I've ever had since, and it was so visceral and so vivid that it actually crossed over into reality as I woke up. So I won't take too long in explaining it to you, though. But basically, I saw some beings in my sleep. I think I was in this open expanse of land at dawn, and there was this long, very tall pillar made of metal. And at the very top, there was an old man laid in this chair in like an old, like it was almost like a rotten throne, basically. Like it's almost like this person was a king, but in disheveled clothes, looking at me like exhausted and tired. And in a way, I felt like that was me, just being represented through this thing. But to the right, standing tall and proud, was this very tall man, extremely tall, I'd say over 6 to 7 foot tall as well, like much taller than me. This being had, blue skin. It had like a bow and arrow on his back, and shaved hair with black. If you remember, like back in the Egyptian days, they had like long strands of hair tied, everything shaved. And this it's a very handsome looking man as well, though. He actually looked at me, and I could see he wasn't quite fully human. I thought, obviously, the blue skin was a giveaway there, but there's something about him that he was like much stronger than myself. And in this dream, it sang a song, and I'm not gonna sing it because I'm not gonna embarrass myself anyway. But it translates to like Yahweh Navu happy or something like that. But basically, it said these 2 words in like a language that I understood then, but I don't understand saying it now. But as it said this song, as it sang this song, it thrust me back so much because it was so powerful. I was almost blasted off this platform into the abyss, essentially. And I woke up, I was shot out of bed, and it was still singing over reality. So by the time it said like the last word, it had translated into English like the word happy. So I was actually there awake in my bedroom looking around. I could still hear the end of the song in reality. Like it was so loud that I could actually hear it echoing in the room. And it's one of the most profound experiences I ever had. But basically, as I woke up, I felt completely different. I knew in my head there was an idea, and it was simply the fact that everything's going to be okay. It's all going to work out. And yet, about a day later, the problem that I had at the company resolved itself because the company was shut down. And it forced me to be in a situation where I found my dream job just a few days later. So my whole life changed just like that.
There you go.
The situation at home during the pandemic changed in a way that I wasn't going to be exhausted. There is a much happier measure. And I knew everything was going to be all right. Like, yeah, since then I've had an amazing career. Like, my life's been far different. I'm more positive. And there was this thing at the time, and I spoke to people about this particular being, but I'm kind of curious to see, like, what you think this being was. Like, do you think it was maybe a psychological manifestation of challenge or being overcome, or did I communicate with something at a different vibration to myself? Anyway, so what do you think? And have you heard anything like that before?
The two things that come to mind, my friend, when these beings are very real and they are our guardian angels, for want of a better term. They are there specifically to open the portals that are ready for us to walk through. So what's happened is, for you, is so profound, but it's those beautiful beings. I must say, in my experiences of the writings and the listenings and things, I have not seen otherworldly beings. That's, quite frankly, I don't think it matters too much. It's the trust that we place in the love that's been offered to us. It's like these beings have said, here's a platter of, this is for you. We will be with you. I will be with you all the time. There is no separation between you and me. In the heavenly realms, time is not a relative thing. It doesn't turn by the rotations of the sun. It's the love that bridges between the two. So there is no separation between. The other thing that comes to mind is, and I'll give you my own experience of that. What are we now? God, it's almost 20 years ago. I was sitting in this very same spot, and a month or two prior, I had this urge to write my first book. And I was always an educator, a business coach, a trainer and the like. So I was writing about these things. And I was sitting here and all the kids were asleep. The house is quiet. And I heard it. It was like someone speaking in my ear. And even now I kind of hear it. And I'll leave out the expletives, but it was, who's going to read this? You're not. I mean, remember, I've never written anything. I'm not even sure where a comma goes. But I heard this, who's going to read this blip? You're not a writer. Just do what you do. Wow, far out. But I knew what it was. And I said, there's a little technique that I used. I said, welcome, old friend. Fear of success, self-esteem. I don't need you anymore. See you later. And this spectre, which is what it was, you don't repress it. It's an internal barrier. It's internal saboteurs to say, Stephen, you're not good enough. Yeah, you're only this, you're only that. You're too big, you're too tall, you're too whatever.
I get that, yeah.
Let it go. Don't repress it. Let it go. Because that's the block. It's the block that says you're not good enough. Here's the muse, the beautiful divine being that's wanting to speak to you. But the being says, I'm not good enough. I don't believe. Really? No, I can't do that. Let that go. Open the door. And then that channel, that hollow bone we mentioned before, becomes a conduit for all of the love and the intuition that is going to pour through. Yeah. And therein lies the trust. It will happen. But there's no barrier there that says, I can't do this. You're not good enough, Stephen. That being that you saw, I would know that that's a divine avatar, if you will, sitting upon one shoulder to say, here we go. This is a ride. Let's hang on. Yeah. Tune in. Let's make it happen.
So it seems to be like through these experiences, we're learning how to embrace the hollow bone or travel through the hollow bone, so to speak. Because, for example, I used to hate public speaking. Like, honestly, I had like the worst phobia of public speaking many years ago because my always remember back at primary school when I was only about like 8 or 9 years old. Like me and my friend were asked to stand in assembly in front of the whole school and do a presentation about. We're learning about history, so we're talking about like knights and castles, and there was like a suit of armor there. We had to explain which does what on the suit of armor, and like I had this whole thing ready to go. I didn't really question like would it be scary or not. And I remember like my friend walking out on stage ready to point at the suit of armor. I was like on another platform behind the curtain. So I had to come out from the curtain to then do the presentation. The only problem is I couldn't find my way out. So I was trying here, there. It was such a big, heavy curtain. I was testing here and there. I could hear the whole school laughing behind as well, because all they could see on the other side were like these hands trying to come out. And I gave up. I just ran off in the end because I couldn't figure out how to get out the curtain. And ever since then, I had this phobia of speaking, like, because all the way through like college and university, I had to do like dissertations, and then I had to present my findings. I used to get the shakes and all sorts, and it seemed like an impossible task because I kept questioning myself, well, you're never going to be good enough. Like, you speak too quickly. No one understands what you're going to say. No one cares. And all this, these things play in your head. And that memory of failing is there over and over. And it took me up till, like my early 30s, where I thought, no, I've had enough of being embarrassed talking in public, because my day job, I have to present certain concepts and ideas. So I have to really like push myself and believe in what I say. So I thought, no, I've had enough of feeling awful about that. And that's where I began to break away from these old, concepts of like, me telling myself or whatever it may be that I'm not, I can't do it. And through practice and study and just, I failed many times, since then as well to get to this point. But either way, I'm now in a way, I'm leaning into that trust and that I can do more and be greater. And now I'm a far more better communicator than I was just a few years ago. But I had this in me the whole time. And isn't that a shame that I couldn't use that earlier on? This is almost like, one of those many lessons out there. Like, you never know what you could be capable of.
Correct.
Like I say, pigs can fly. You got my droney nasal voice on this podcast every couple of weeks for everybody to listen to. But either way, I have no fear of doing it. Like, I don't mind messing up. It's not the end of the world, really. I've imparted so much knowledge through this podcast, which I'm really grateful for. And I've learned a lot from, obviously, it's a wonderful opportunity to speak to you, Stephen, and the many people out there that I wouldn't have spoken to if I didn't do these kind of things. So beautiful thing. Like I say, if we lean into those powers that all of us have, we can do so much more with our life.
It's a beautiful thing. Stan, one of the many things I learned from the writing of the Afterlife and subsequently apply to one's life is, fear not, you are never without the love of the Father. So now when we do things, wherever we go, we get on podcasts, talk to lovely people, whatever, connect in with, we use the word, I use the word the Father because that's what I was given, but you know what I mean, the universal spirit, the love, whatever you,
I understand.
Jesus,
yes.
Whoever, but we connect in with that spirit. No need to fear. We're in good hands. Connect in and let it unfold as it will. But that for me alone, and I'm with you, I couldn't public speak to save my life, 15 or 20 years ago. And now it's...
But you're doing great now.
One enjoys it. It's a good thing. So it's an involvement, but it's all a divine blessing. But when we open up without that fear, then it's a great enabler for the universe to say, oh, okay, we can give you more. Here's some other things to happen. So we release those internal barriers and let the universe flow through the hollow bone.
I get that. I'm going to use that phrase hollow bone actually in future episodes, 100%. I think that's it's such a great analogy. It makes complete sense.
It was not me that thought of this. A good friend of mine told me this, and I say it's a Native American concept, so it's worth Googling.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for the Native American culture because I said, actually a few episodes ago when I was speaking to my good friend, medium Christine, they had the internet before we have the internet, if that makes sense. Like, they had this universal connection to a higher something, but also ways in which they can communicate to each other on the earth plane, which were far more advanced than the way in which we're communicating now, like more instant as well. Like, it's a shame that we lost those abilities as time's gone by, and I do believe we'll regain them eventually. Yes. But either way, just to kind of round up this conversation, really, because I could talk to you for hours and genuinely hours. So talking about Athar, so like, if you could choose some words that Athar would say to the people watching this episode right now in terms of imparting knowledge, what would you think Athar would leave with people?
The one that sticks in my head, Stan, is just the one I just mentioned. Don't be afraid. The love that awaits us on the other side is so beautiful. The passing process, when we pass over, if we pass over with fear and longing and this, that inhibits the divine from capturing us and nurturing us. So don't be afraid, and know that that divine spirit is there for us all the time. It's waiting for us to say, I'm here, help, guide me. And it will be so.
That is beautiful, because I know people do connect to it in many different ways. Like if they're religious, they do it through prayer. Some people do it through meditation. Some people channel it. Some people just do it automatically, like whether they want to or not. People like us really like to just have that connection all the time. Either way, like it's all about connecting to a source. And to me, like my understanding from this conversation is like the afterlife ultimately is an archive, really. It's an archive, outside of time, of all of our different experiences, all converging into one and communicating with each other infinitely, it seems. So, yeah, and it's not really essentially after a life. It's just, well, technically it's after this life. It's not really after life.
This life is a better term, yes.
Yeah. You're just missing that one word, really, but yeah.
Thank you very much. Absolutely.
So just to remind the guys watching, so your book is called The Afterlife, A Journey to Now You Know What Will Happen. So
Correct.
Is it available now? Like, where can people get it?
Best, Stan, probably they can go to my website if they wish. It's Stephen with a PH, stephenchong.com.au, or just Amazon or one of the big book depositories of choice. You'll find it there. So, yeah, that's the best book. But, I invite people to send me an email. Go get on the website. Got a question or whatever, just shoot me an email and I'll do my best to answer.
I'm sure there's bound to be plenty of questions. So, yeah, I'll add a link in below this video. That's no problem. So, thank you for this conversation, because I've had quite a busy day, especially a busy few days. So it's nice just to calm down, have an enlightening conversation with somebody who's full of positive energy and has a lot of love to give the world anyway. So, like I said, I think we need more people like you at the moment.
Thank you.
More people like you in the White House right now, and get people to wake up and evolve. That would be lovely. But we'll lead them to it.
Stan, I thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No, I appreciate you being here. It's been a real pleasure. But yeah, you take care, and thank you so much. And if you'd like to come back, share some more stories about the afterlife, because I do know some other people who have other experiences as well. So maybe it would be good for us to get together and kind of share our experiences. Like I mentioned myself, I went to the edge ultimately. I know others have been there too. So yeah, it'd be interesting to kind of compare and contrast learnings.
More than happy, Stan. Let's do that. Let the vast expanse between us be a bridge.
Absolutely. That's very well said, actually. Yeah, it's very good. Anyway, you take care.
choice, sharing dreams and blowing off steam. We'll lend you a hand, we'll let you stand, sharing stories about the unknown. Paranormal perspectives, we're here to inspect it. I'm a small, not a medium. Let us escape from this tedium, learning from each other, breaking barriers, a message of hope, birthed from the unknown. Who you gonna call? I'm not a ghostbuster, no proton packs, just crossing streams of knowledge. It's not so scary when things get hairy. It's not the paranormal, just future normal. Breaking barriers, no longer the carrier, releasing the fear and replacing it with knowledge. Understanding each other, we uncover a whole new point of view within you. Paranormal perspectives, we're here to inspect it. I'm a small, not a medium. Let us escape from this tedium, learning from each other, breaking barriers, a message of hope, birthed from the unknown. The only stream we need to cross is the platforms to get the message across. Knowing each other, sister to brother. No ghost or spirit or demon will ever get the better of this medium. we're here to inspect it. I'm a small nut, a medium. Let us escape from this tedium, learning from each other, breaking barriers. A message of hope birthed from the